Welcome everybody to the Sunipro Roundtables, where we discuss top of mind challenges facing our clients and the business climate at large. Thank you again for joining us. My name is Pranav Patel, Managing Director here at Sunipro. Joining us, Senior Manager Eric Rudinger, Consultant in the M&A and Digital Transformation space. Charlene Hunter, a leader in the People and Change Management space within energy and tech industries. And Kabir Bora, Senior Manager in the Communication and Change Management space as well. So our topic today is something people have been talking about, they're excited about, and let's face it, a little bit scared about: artificial intelligence. We've come a long way from Johnny 5. Over 40, you may be able to relate to that. But really the topics right now have been focused on Chat GPT and some of the social implications. We want to focus this conversation around business applications and how certain key industries may be impacted by AI.
So the first question on everyone's mind is what is AI and how do we define it? Eric, do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, definitely. So we think broadly, AI is defined as machine replication of human thinking. So that could be perceiving information, synthesizing information, or inferring information. So essentially imitating human thought to either solve or identify problems. And the reason this is such a timely topic, and we hear it and see it in the news every day, is the development of generative AI, so things like ChatGPT and others, that essentially use unsupervised learning algorithms to generate digital content from existing content or prompts. And that digital content that is generating could be text, audio, video, code, among others. So a lot of applications and capabilities surrounding that. And when we think about how we can apply that to business, there's a wide variety of applications, specifically in M&A, around the energy sector. So you think about oil and gas, petrochemicals, mining, and renewables, as well as the broader people development applications. So that could be change management, training, learning, and general HR. And I think the key value that generative AI and AI as a whole, we see operational efficiency applications and reducing costs. So wide variety of things that we'd love to talk about today.
Yes, Eric. So it is a very broad topic, so in terms of, M&A though, for the clients that are heavily vested in phases of deal cycles, is there something that's specific in terms of deal impact? Maybe Pranav, you could touch on that for a little bit.
Yeah, Charlene, that's a great question. I think one of the areas that stands out and really is the most likely to be heavily impacted is target screening, right? That's an area where you're looking at large amounts of data. You can compare against specific criteria, EBITDA, revenue, industries, and really pump up that volume of deals that are being looked at, and eventually be able to find more value add targets for our clients. But really, as you go further down the chain in M&A, the due diligence process is also impacted. We've previously had months-long due diligence cycles. They've gone down to weeks as we move from manual data rooms to virtual data rooms. With AI, we can see that coming down to days, as we have AI algorithms that can really connect the dots between PDFs, Excels, other documents within the VDR, and really find those true logical relationships that can identify red flags. So you get a much faster analysis time, being able to point out more accurate red flags, so you have a higher quality output. So I see a huge impact here in really delivering faster and higher quality value for our clients.
Yeah, and Pranav, just to add to that, when you think about terms and conditions and service level agreements, all that review during M&A activity, ensuring that those multitude of documents tick and tie together. AI is already being applied and can grow in terms of that review. So that high resource requirement of reviewing these lengthy documents can be done in minutes, in terms of does this SLA tie, whether it's 60 days or 90 days, any discrepancy, reduces the amount of resources required to sift through all that information. So the data component and analysis is huge.
And you can think about the cost impact. Any sort of delays, start calling the lawyers, right? That's a huge bill that you can delay or you can offset.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but let's shift a little bit, just specifically to the energy sector, though. What do you anticipate seeing in that arena, in terms of benefits of AI?
Yeah. I'll take that. So, I mean, we think about energy specifically in oil and gas. What we're seeing already is the key value and capabilities around predictive analytics. So, identifying potential future failures to course correct before anything happens. So, think about equipment strategies. Oil and gas companies are already applying this to improve and define their turnaround schedules, reduce downtimes. Think about the environmental health and safety component. So anything that can reduce a safety risk, is a huge value for any oil and gas company. When you think about broader terms, there's also the ability to use autonomous vehicles and haulers to reduce the on the ground human component where there might be an accident, what have you. So we're seeing that in mining and oil and gas, also in aerial surveys and seismic surveys, applying those capabilities to those applications. In terms of even broader, if you think about the upstream side, the exploration component, all this data analysis is helping companies identify within existing assets, are there higher potential deposits, whether it's oil and gas or mining of rare earth materials that they may have missed or overlooked in the past, or identifying new assets that for whatever reason weren't captured or identified in conventional exploration efforts. So just a couple of weeks ago, BHP announced they're working with Microsoft to identify essentially opportunities within their Escondida copper mine, which is the largest copper mine in the world, located in Chile. Are there additional deposits that they can capture from that mine versus the high cost of developing a new mine? So again, all efficiency related, and predictive analytics is driving a lot of that development.
Yeah, and I think the mining example, right, that ties directly into the uptick in EVs. The battery components really
Exactly.
need those materials, and we're starting to see a scarcity, right? Microchips, batteries, that kind of technology. We're starting to see a now limitation in how much
Yeah.
core material we have.
The demand for minerals is just going to continue to grow. So how do we, pull what we can from those existing assets? There's an environmental component as well. I mean, might as well, pull out what we can versus, damaging, going through a new site development. So a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And if you think beyond just the oil and gas petrochemical industry, if you think just broad energy and include utilities in that space, you can see our utilities are very heavily invested in AI. They are everything from the smart grid to the management of smart grid to actually managing using AI to predict failures in the grid where it might happen, to looking at overall climate change and the way climate change is impacting electric usage and air, and how will the grid go down if there's another hurricane or a tornado. Where do the resources need to be based on climate patterns? It's allowing utility companies to move assets around and to respond better to these fast changing events that are happening out there. And beyond that, just to overall customer service for the utilities, because they are constantly out there looking for customers. What are the best types of energy to provide the customers? Are customers more interested in renewable energy versus traditional energy? Are they more price sensitive, especially with the way that the pricing is going at the current days? So speaking of renewables, Pranav, would you like to cover that industry for us to let us know how AI is being used in the renewable industry?
Yeah, that should be all right. Just your topic speaking about the grid, right? I think that ties in. The largest growing asset, right, within energy is the solar industry, right? So panels and the components used to build those scale solar arrays, AI is going to largely it's going to highly impact that, right? Especially when we're looking at the R&D life cycle, the ability to assess materials, being able to choose which materials that we want to pick and look at. That's going to help increase energy density, durability, and really also make that connection with materials that have specific properties that we can see as, hey, these are recyclable, right? We have to look at this now end to end. We're starting to now see that first round of a heavy amount of solar arrays and panels starting to get to that end of life. We see specialists in trying to recycle it, but as we scale and grow that industry, we need to make sure that there is a good process in place to help renew and recycle those materials. And so we're starting to see that connection now of AI and the environment, which is something that pretty exciting, right? When you think AI, right, going back to some of the original concepts and what we thought AI would bring us, we didn't really think it would tie us to recycling and environmental concepts. So I think it's a really great application, and excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, and you can apply some of what we talked about, oil and gas and mining. I mean, you think about aerial surveys and, being able to look at, as solar and wind grows, how can we optimize where, potential new assets are going. So, I mean, the applications, are only going to grow in the renewable space.
I totally agree.
Yeah, these are all really great points. And I think the one thing, though, the common thread across any industry is the fact that people are going to be impacted, right? So, I just, as a change professional, as someone who's kind of on that side of making sure that the people are okay through all these changes, let's talk a little bit about, that aspect of AI and the implications, because at the end of the day, everybody just wants to know what's going to happen to me, like how is it going to really impact my job. And I think a lot of the fear that clients might have to help to overcome with their employees is the fact that these are not supposed to replace you, it's supposed to help and aid you. So Kabir, I know you're also in the change space with me, so what are your thoughts on that?
You're absolutely right, Charlene. AI at the end of the day is a tool. It's that people can use to work more efficiently, to make smarter and more informed decisions, and in general work smarter. Our clients are using AI out there to reduce a number of those labor-intensive manual tasks, so that people can focus on the more complex strategic work, right? So, and especially with predictive AI coming out like ChatGPT, which can very easily turn a memo around for somebody, or an email, or put together a PowerPoint. People are using them in all different ways to reduce the manual work and to do the more creative thinking. And it's going to eventually allow people to be better problem solvers. And there's a Pew Research article that I just read recently that said 37% of American workers are highly excited by AI, and another 34% believe it's going to. They're excited, but slightly concerned, and the remainers are highly concerned, of course. But it shows that that folks have a pretty positive outlook of AI as a tool. I think, but that's not without its challenges, right? So, so some of the challenges that our clients face is this whole AI that's coming out. All these new tools. It's such a fast pace of change. There's so much coming out every day, and things are constantly changing at a much faster pace than before, and it's causing companies to adapt. Our clients have to look and see that do I have a culture? Is my company culture the type that will allow us to be rapidly to take on all this rapid technology that's coming on board? Are my folks culturally designed to be more like a tech company? Maybe that's rapidly evolving, or are we very set in our ways where we've done things a certain way and therefore don't like change very much? So that's causing clients to take a hard look at things, important things, soft things like culture. Does my client have do my employees have the right skill set, or do I have to upskill them in certain areas so they're so then they can be the workers of the future. And at the end of the day, it's all about trust. Do we trust the data we're receiving back, the information, what our AI tools are telling us in order to make our decisions? AI is not 100% accurate, as we've seen with some instances with ChatGPT giving wrong answers. In many cases, it's all based on the data that's going in. So there's a high level of trust that needs to be built before everyone can just fully trust what's going on. Some people just rather do it themselves, have the hands on paper and solve the equations themselves. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. I think trust is a big factor in terms of any effort where you're trying to tackle a culture change, where you're trying to introduce any new technology. I think we've all experienced that. So we know that that is a major part of getting people bought into what is going to happen. I know, Eric, in a former life, you had a little bit of experience in terms of training and dealing with people as well. So
Definitely.
I'm going to give you time to weigh in on it.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, I mean, we talk about AI as this net new thing, but we've all experienced AI through some sort of virtual assistant or chat bot. So think about user experience. I would say the majority of us have probably had some tensions and frustrations at one point in time with a virtual assistant when talking to any institution. So while those are improving, you think about change management as a whole, and specifically training, the creative strategy component. AI is not there yet. I don't see it getting there, anytime soon. So that's when you think about the high level human touch component to make sure that whether it's a project or implementation, what have you, the overall experience and making sure it's a success is still going to be, the human component. But when you think about training, developing training plans is the human component, but the actual execution of, recordings, development of the course or the actual recording of the course, there's a lot of repetitive, mundane components to training execution in terms of the actual content. So that's where I see, I don't think anyone would be sad if some of that went away and AI, led the charge there in terms of, the hours and days of content, development, what have you. But the strategy, the creativity, all of that is still very much on training professionals, change management professionals to make sure that the overall end user experience is positive, or any challenges are mitigated to overall be a success.
Yeah, the human factor definitely plays a part in all of that. So, we talked about a lot of different things in this space, but I want to kick it back to Pranav to just kind of talk about a little bit of the Sunipro point of view. So what are you telling clients at this point?
Well, I mean, I think what we talked about on the people side, right? The biggest factors in a change is the degree of change, right? What's the impact? How far off is it from what people are used to, and what's the speed of it? And with AI, all of those are at a high factor, right? They're coming at you fast. It's going to be quite a significant change in how people do things, and it's going to be a lot of learning involved. So as important as the technology itself is, how we get people to adapt to it is going to be even bigger, right? Otherwise, without the adoption, we won't be able to reap some of that value. But in general, I think the key for organizations is just to be able to be ready, right? Depending on where you are in your maturity, depending on your organization, your industry, the specific applications as AI starts to develop new technology, the specific application for you specifically will be different, right? So not one tool is going to fit everybody, but when that technology is available, we need to be ready to incorporate it as fast as we can, right? So what does that mean? That means being ready from an organizational standpoint, being adaptable, making sure that, right, there's there's teams, there's processes in place to identify technology, quickly incorporate it, quickly identify team members within your organization that are kind of at the ready to, do an assessment, change what we need to do in order to adapt and slowly bring in that technology, because that will give you the edge, and also on the other side it could keep you from falling behind and starting to lose market share.
And part of that, Pranav, is when you say be ready, it's also be ready for, rules and regulations that we don't have right now. So it's a bit of the Wild West in terms of how AI is being developed. We've had some competitive legislation to make sure that, everything's fair across the market. But, in terms of data privacy and some of the concerns we've heard, there's things in motion and, bills being looked at, but nothing's been passed in terms of, how is all of this, being, utilized once you're entering something into ChatGPT or all that content, data privacy. Those are real concerns that we don't have government legislation on. We've seen some U.S. and EU efforts to, again, put some parameters and boundaries, but a lot could change. And I think each and every day that we hear more and more about this, Washington and governments around the world are going to have to address. So be ready and be ready to adapt if, as more comes in terms of government rules and regulations.
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly. Changing government regulations is the most fun part of our jobs. Completely agree with that. And the most predictable.
Yeah.
No. Well, again, thank you everybody for joining us and spending a few minutes with our team. It's been very insightful for us, and I hope you were able to take away at least a few points. Please comment, share your questions and thoughts. Have a great rest of the day, and take care.